I think I'm saying that we struggle all our lives to answer it. That it's the struggle that is important. That's what helps us to define our place in the universe.
This is Beverly, Dr. Beverly, Dr. Beverly Crusher.
Look where we are. Here, all of us, in this moment. So let's do what we spent our entire lives learning to be great at.
And this is Crusher Convo. And welcome to Crusher Convo. We're crushing the conversation one episode at a time. And I am here to discuss episode 6 of Starfleet Academy. Come, let's away. As you can see, I am wearing my GG hat today, and I will explain why in a minute. But again, if you have not yet seen this episode, please turn back now because there will be spoilers.
Spoilers.
Of course, we jumped in right with Terima and Caleb getting it on. All right. And I thought it was a very sweet montage. You know, a couple people were making fun of it. Of course, those are those negative Nancys and toxic tubers, as Larry Nemechek likes to say. But it was a very nicely done montage of just showing them growing closer together, being together. But then it just hits straight into this drama time when she accidentally taps into Caleb's deepest, horrible childhood with little scrap on the floor. And of course, Caleb is super defensive when she sees all of that. Obviously, she didn't do it on purpose. She even said that, but he was like, get out of my head. You know what I mean? And I recall that happening on TNG where a couple of certain people, not like Riker or anybody or Beverly or whatever, but I remember there was a couple of characters that were like, to Deanna, get out of my head situation. I believe it was Dr. Stubbs, which I believe was the season 3 premiere of TNG when Beverly came back. She was a counselor, so she was trying to, embody those feelings, trying to help him out. And he was like, get out of my head. This was an accident for Terima. She didn't mean to, but as a Betazoid, she was able to just sense what was going on. So this, of course, starts off of how it's going to end. And I kind of had a feeling. I was like, something's going to happen to her and Caleb's going to be just, absolutely besides himself.
Today, the War College and Starfleet Academy will work together in a joint training exercise. We will be using that ship, the USS Miyazaki. It carried an experimental warp alternative called the Singularity Drive. But when the crew first activated it, the ship was destroyed by a cascading series of mechanical failures. Her crew perished.
Now we turn into this time where the Academy and the War College are going to do an exercise. You could tell that the chancellors are trying to, have a unique understanding, help each other out. The War College can teach Academy kids some stuff. The Academy kids can teach the War College stuff. Like, this is a nice collaboration. And as you see that they are at a, ship graveyard of the USS Miyazaki, which is why I'm wearing my GG hat, because Miyazaki was the creator of Studio Ghibli, at least co-founder, one of them, and the animator. And so that was a nice little nod to something that I think is really important to a lot of filmmakers, even in Star Trek, of just Studio Ghibli was ahead of its time. They started in the 80s and they created such amazing stories. I believe it was Spirited Away that was the first to win an Oscar. Okay. So that was a really nice little touch, and anyone who is in an anime or into Studio Ghibli specifically, we recognized that name. My husband called it. He was like, wait a second, I know that name. So hence the GG hat.
Starfleet intelligence indicates that Noose used some sort of specialized weapon to clear the Furies out of Sector 119. Braca might be willing to share that information with us for a price.
How do we even know where he is?
Binary activity has increased in the outskirts of Federation space. Intelligence suspects is nearby. Command is willing to suspend his outstanding warrants for 72 hours if he'll come to us. The enemy of our enemy.
He's usually just another enemy. This one's an asshole.
So, of course, fast forward, they split the teams. They're going onto the ship, and we have Lieutenant Commander, I think his name was Tokov or something like that. The moment he said, I made a bet with Commander Thok that if we don't get this done in 2 minutes, I don't get my shore leave, okay? And he was like, I haven't been off this ship in 6 months. I was like, oh, this dude's gonna die. Like, something's gonna happen. And sure enough, that's what happened. So, of course, he is sacrificed to save the kids. They are being held hostage by these horrible creatures called the Furies. And there is a little bit of working together here because you have a couple of kids from the War College. It was Kyle and Bobby. And then, of course, you had Jaden, Caleb, and Sam being the part of the academy. Of course, Caleb showed off, putting the system back online in less than 2 minutes because I'm going to call him Tokov right now because I can't remember his name. But he won. Didn't get to enjoy it, unfortunately. But there was this moment of learning about the Miyazaki, which was in a comic book, which is why Bobby was so excited to be on there. And so you're like, okay, cool. Well, now they just got held hostage by these horrible aliens. And this is the idea that the Admiral is like, hey, let's ask News Braca. And she's like, fuck that. Why would we talk to this guy? They're desperate, okay? They're trying to find an area here of like, if we can get an ounce of information from this guy and be able to save our cadets, it's worth it. But she had a gut feeling. She's like, something's gonna happen. He's onto something. Like, there's something more to this. Why can't I see it? She should have followed her gut. She tried to, but she was trusting the Admiral. She was trusting, the Chancellor Kelrek, because he had said, my cadets know what to do in a hostage situation, what they did, which is why that commander had died, because he did a little signal to Bobby. Bobby knew what to do. They fought and everything. He sacrificed himself and he was partly eaten and sent out the airlock. So they know what to do in this kind of stuff. But again, she just still had this moment of like, I'm missing something and I don't know what. But she really just was focusing on trying to get the kids back, especially because, again, these Furies are some nasty dudes. So she kind of pushed that feeling aside and then, of course, ends up regretting it later on.
Well, humanitarian supplies. Now, personally, I would beat you into the next galaxy for price gouging and extortion.
Oh, name the place, Admiral. Please. See, this is the thing about being a good guy. You don't get what you want. My dad was a bad guy, and if he wanted, he got to beat the shit out of me hourly.
Lucky man.
Yeah, I got big shoes to fill.
I love this scene between the Admiral and News Braca. Can I just say, Paul Giamatti was in this episode, okay? Absolutely delicious when it comes to his villainous side. And this moment, the Admiral is trying to ask for help, but is like, I really hate your guts, but I really have no choice here. And so he had to kind of stick it to him as much as he could. Now, with Noose, he was just like, Nucifer, that we've actually find out is his name. He apparently learned his badness from his father, who was either Klingon or a Tellarite, who knows. But apparently he was such a bad guy that Noose was beaten to a pulp whenever he got, whatever chance his dad got. And he learned from that. And that's kind of sad, in my opinion. There's always a sad story when it comes to villains. But for the Admiral, he didn't care. He was just all like, lucky man, he got to beat the shit out of you, One thing that I am going to point out, Holly Hunter just sitting there and just staring and listening. And you could see the whole look on her face of just like, I want to beat the crap out of this guy and I can't touch him, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut because that's not going to be helpful. It was brilliant. Okay. So with Paul just spouting facts at her face and she's just taking it all in, that was an amazing scene. Not only here, but in every scene that they had together, even up to the end. Now, of course, for Noose, he's all like, I need help with this sector. I want to get, he's a pirate. So he's like, I need the money. Well, I want the money. He doesn't need it. And they're like, fine, we'll go talk and see about what we could do for you. And of course, Nala's like, there's something else going on, but she's just playing by the rules and just listening to, Noose, Braca. And again, she should have followed her gut because that was not what he intended.
I couldn't control it. I couldn't regulate.
That was before the implant.
If I got angry or hurt, I did damage.
It was an accident.
I understand.
It was Dad. She got angry and blew out his auditory cortex. Honestly, I think she kind of did him a favor because I was trying to teach myself the trumpet that week, and our house was...
Oakham is such a good brother. He's always defending his sister. He's always pushing her to be like in the beginning of the series, he was like, hey, that guy likes you. You should go try hook up with him. But in this moment, we're finally figuring out just a little bit more about her special powers, okay, that we never really seen with Beta Zeds before. And to get back at those haters who were like, why the F are, Beta Zeds sign language? Well, that's why. He had his freaking ears popped off because of her sonic, sonic boom. And that was the whole reason why they were using sign language. And I know I questioned in the beginning. I was like, well, that's interesting. Why are Beta Zeds now using sign language? I don't know. It didn't really bother me like some people, but there's a reason behind it. Okay. And in this case, she's trying to be like, I'm connecting to Caleb. I can see them. What can I do to help? And of course, Caleb's, running with it. At first he was like kind of freaking out, but then he was trusting her. So this was a nice little moment for them because they had that big fight in the beginning, but now they're using that connection to try and not only she's trying to save them, but really save Caleb. And he's like, let's do this. Let's work together and try to figure it out. And of course, both chancellors are like, as dangerous as this sounds, this is a good backup. Okay. I had a Lexana Troy moment here because they mentioned her psilocybin. Psilocybin is, of course, a telepathy thing in the brain, and we've heard it before with Troy. I can't remember the episode, but we did hear it for Lwaxana in Dark Page. Her psilocybin levels were depleted when she was working with the Karen, and that's why she went into coma. Okay, and here we are. We have Terima in a coma when she pulls her inhibitor off and does her sonic boom, right? And it's all because she has so much emotion, so much empathy and everything. She has to let it out a certain way, and it could be deadly, which it was. Okay, which we'll see later. But in this case, I was like, oh, that was definitely like Lwaxana with this whole the whole mind thing. And so I liked that little parallel that we had, because I do see a lot of Deanna and Lwaxana and the Troys and stuff like that with Terima. And I even said, they don't have to be related, but it would be nice. And if they're not related, it would be nice to see that Terima looked up to the Troys, right? So again, I liked that little moment, and I loved Occam just defending his sister. And he was being his little nerdy self and started spitting out facts about him trombone playing. But again, this was a moment where they're like, okay, we could use this, but we also don't want to put her at risk. And she ended up making the ultimate sacrifice at the end.
Forward shields, evasive maneuvers.
Direct hit! The Sargasso has been completely disabled.
Oh, God. I have the encrypted message. No audio. Read it! They took the bait. Bon appetit.
And of course, her gut was right. Noose Braca was working with the Furies because they wanted the Sargasso to leave that, very high military type, area, so he can jump on there and grab some apparently very important tech that it's very dangerous that he has his hands on. And she was just like, I knew it. I should have trusted my gut, all that stuff. And this was just a moment of defeat for her, right? This was a moment where she is just like, I cannot believe this. We fell into his trap. And this was a moment even for Kelrek to be like, well, crap. As much as Kelrek, he teaches his cadets about just being, I don't want to say one-sided, but he's just like, we have all these little areas that we need to follow, like protocol and this and this and this. And you can obviously go off and do something outside of protocols if you see fit. But when you're too much into the whole protocols and things, like we saw the commander with, Bavi in the beginning where they did the little hand signals, because this is, you can't predict. You have to kind of think outside the box, which is what Nala should have done. She had the gut feeling. She didn't follow her gut. And now they were both paying the price for it. And even the Admiral was just absolutely pissed, obviously. But again, when Noose wrote that little message of like, they took the bait, bon appetit, he knew they were going to read that. And that was his little way of like, good luck, bitches. Like, that's just kind of, you fell for it. I win. Sayonara, right? So this was just an absolute defeat when it comes to them. But yeah, I felt really bad for Nala at this moment because she just knew that she just got beat by Noose.
Jamming field is restabilizing.
I still cannot get a lock.
So, Tarima has been connected to Caleb this whole time. So she's watching all this go down. She's seeing that they're being attacked. And that's why she ripped out her inhibitor. And of course, she watches her comrade, her classmate, sacrifice himself for someone that she loves. And that, I think, is what she was like, I got to do something. I know I can stop them, and I'm going to do it. In honor of Bavi and in order to save Caleb and the rest of her classmates. And so that was most likely the catalyst for Tarima to just be like, I am willing to sacrifice myself because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of this in order to save them. And, Bavi had mentioned in the beginning about, because Caleb could not understand why that commander had just sacrificed himself. And of course, Bavi was like, because I don't know what he said. He's like, a great officer said once, which he was talking about Spock, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. He's like, or the one. Okay. And he held on to that. He understood it. And that's exactly what he did here. And for Caleb, this is a moment for him. He's been alone his entire life, practically. Only thinking about himself, only taking care of himself. And someone literally just sacrificed himself for him. This is a moment for Caleb of having a family, even with his classmates, with Nala, with Thok, with the War College, understanding what, just teamwork is, and not ever knowing that, not seeing someone care so much for his life that he would die for him. So this is going to be a hard lesson for Caleb to learn. He's going to be so torn. He's going to feel guilty. He's going to hate Noose even more now because I know he blames Noose for what happened to his mom, obviously. And this is now another moment of like, you keep taking people away from me. So I'm curious of where this is going to land when it comes to the finale. But this was absolutely devastating to see Bobby die. And Kyle's reaction, he hung out with him. Who knows what the Romulan chick is going to handle the news. She's probably going to be more pissed at the Academy. Bobby went down as a hero, just like his hero, Spock, did in the Wrath of Khan.
Oh, I want you to be okay, Nala. I really do. Because hating you made me better at my job. Such a petty teenage thing to say, but it's true. I hate you. Beyond the obvious reasons I hate you, because you think your way of life is better than mine.
I felt really bad for Kelrick here. I don't think he's ever lost a cadet, especially in this manner. And he's suffering a huge loss seeing one of his cadets die in this manner. And for Nala, she's hearing how much Noose just hates her and is like, I am doing all of this to just show how much I hate you, and more people are going to die because of you. And, you know, it's funny because Nala didn't do anything wrong to Noose. She did her job. He did something stupid. A Starfleet officer was killed. A mother was unfortunately, but she wasn't put in prison, but, you know, a different camp than he was, a rehabilitation camp, and stripped away the mother and son. And it all came down from what Noose did, but because she stopped him, he's all like, I'm going to have my revenge on her. But there must be something about Nala that Noose is reminded of, and that's why he's so pissed off, because in reality what she did wasn't anything outside the norm of what any other Starfleet officer would have done. So there's something about Nala that just really like hits a nerve with him. And so whatever pent up anger that Noose has, he has taken it out on Nala. Now, I had mentioned in my live reaction about, I think Nala kind of is pissed off at herself because she kind of feels like she understands Noose, and she kind of feels like she's almost like him just a little bit in different ways. Obviously, she's not an evil bastard like he is. And at first I was saying that Noose hates himself because he has an ounce of humility. I retracted that comment later on in my live because I was like, no, he's an asshole. He's a bad guy. But he just hates everything about her. And that's when that thought process came of like, there must be something that she reminds him of. And that's why he's so angry and wants to just destroy her and the Federation. But, you know, he was right in the sense that all of this happening, people dying and stuff, is because of her trying to protect Caleb.
You sent your kid to his death to save many. But this is kind of the opposite, right? You got your kid back and everyone else died. How's that for a trauma loop? My gift to you. Wait, there's more. I still owe you something. And believe me, it is coming with a big red bow, a special gift.
So that brought me to this moment because she did sacrifice her son in the sense of she couldn't do anything to save her son without risking the lives of her crew. And so that probably holds a lot of weight for her, that she was a captain in that moment and not a mother. And so she sacrificed her son and his crew for saving her crew, right? But he was right. He's like, you just sacrificed everybody else just to save Caleb. And so this is a moment for her where I think she's trying to rectify what she did, because she most likely regrets it. But Caleb's not her son. So this is just a certain trauma that she's having over and over again. That's why he's like, what a trauma loop, and you're welcome, because he's causing it. So he's just loving that he is causing this hurt for her. The big red bow comment made me think that's Caleb's mom. If you remember, she had mentioned to Caleb in a couple episodes ago that she was super smart and she was learning, I think she was like chemistry or something, where she was just super, super smart, which we see Caleb is very, very smart. To me, he's kind of like, you know, I kind of see Sam more of like the Data character in this series, and I kind of see Caleb like the Geordi character. Geordi was very smart. He knew so much, hence why he was, you know, the chief engineer. But he learned that from his mom, and she clearly was also very smart, but she wants to go after the Federation because she blames them for taking her son away. So she probably went back to Noose, or Noose took her. I don't know. But this big red bow situation, I think, is something that Caleb's mom might have created something to destroy the Federation, and Caleb's going to have to choose. Caleb's going to have to choose between his mom, who he's been searching for 15 years, or this new family who's been taking care of him, who has sacrificed so much for him, Nala, all of the cadets, now even from the War College. And this is going to be maybe a cliffhanger season of what is Caleb going to do. And so I think the big red bow is going to be Caleb's mom in a very, very big way.
By tricorder.
All right, guys. So I got 4 votes, and it was a very quick vote. It was like only 12 hours long, which is why I only got 4. However, all 4, 5 sonic beams. 100%. Pure action, all of it. 0 for 4 Bait and Swifts, 0 for 3 Furies, and 0 for 1 and 2 Sacrifices. We loved last week's episode when it came to Sam and Cisco and all that nostalgia and how they really honored Avery. This was a totally opposite episode, okay? This showcased a lot of Trek. This showcased a lot of heart and teamwork and tragedy, all bundled up in one. Got emotional again. However, I didn't cry as much as I did last week. But I've been giving a 5 these last couple episodes because they were that good. Do I think this episode's better than Series Acclamation Mill? I want to say no, but by a hair. Okay? But I think this episode is better than the Klingon episode with Jaden. But that was also a great episode, and I gave those 2 episodes a 5. So I'm going to give this one a 5 as well. Might kind of adjust my numbers a little later now that I'm seeing more episodes, but these last few have been top notch. And so I'm definitely going to give this 5 sonic beams for sure. Okay, guys, that was my review. Comment below and tell me what you thought of this episode. Do you also give it 5 sonic beams or not? And don't forget to like and subscribe if you have not yet already for more Crusher combo content. And next week, I will be starting my season 4 with finally watching Discovery. I will be watching A Vulcan Hello, and I will be reviewing it with Wes from Twin City Trekkies. And so I'm super excited to finally enter the disco and probably get to know, understand a little bit more from Starfleet Academy, because there's a lot of disco reference there, and I'm like, I have no idea. But yeah, super excited, very excited about this season, very excited about the cons that I'll be attending this year. But yeah, can't wait for, we're now more than halfway through to Academy. Got 4 episodes left. What do you think's going to happen? Comment below. See you on the socials. And as always, guys, live long and prosper.
Crusher out.